I once again welcome you all. Let us start with universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is also one with every other. Let us meditate for 1 minute at least. Thank you. Now I request Brother Parth Sarathi Prasad Sarangi to start the program. As it is his third session, I request him to start the program.
Thank you, Pradip bhai. Namaskar to everybody. So before going to deliver my talk on this astral plane, I would like to bow down before the great soul Leadbeater, just to get his blessings mentally, so that what actually I am saying will create the same effect which he wants the readers to go through when he has written this particular book. Because this book is not written by a layman. The book is written by a person who have already observed these things, and then he has documented it literally. So we have been discussing about the astral plane, and we have been also discussing the inhabitants of the astral plane. More or less, we all know that astral plane is a plane that interpenetrates the physical plane, and human beings mostly go there just after death, permanently or go for a longer period of time. Usually also we go there in the sleep. So in this my today's talk, we shall discuss that how the conditions of the astral plane actually affect a human being after his death, and what are the phases through which the soul has to pass through, especially in the astral plane. So already we know that the astral plane has 7 subdivisions. And when a man dies, he goes to that subdivision, with which he is mentally as well as by his own desires accustomed with when he was in the waking consciousness. So when man was living in the waking consciousness, or he was living in the physical body, at that time he had entertained so many desires, so many thoughts within his mind, and every desire and every thought accordingly has gathered some astral matters with his astral body. And when he dies, he goes to that subdivision of the astral plane in which already he is accustomed. But the problem is that when he is in one subdivision of the astral plane, he remains limited, his vision remains limited only to that subdivision of that plane. So if he has belonged to a lower subdivision of the astral plane, let me say second subdivision or third subdivision or the fourth subdivision, his vision is limited only to that subdivision. But when he has exhausted all the attractions of that particular plane in which he has already gone, the greater part of the grosser particles gradually will fade away. Suppose he belongs to the third plane, third subdivision of the astral plane. He remains there for some period of time. But the period of time depends upon the intensity of his attractions to that particular plane. A time will come when he has exhausted all the attractions. And when he has exhausted all the attractions, then the grosser particle of that subdivision will naturally fade away. And when it fades away, he finds himself in affinity with a somewhat higher state or higher subdivision of the astral plane. So if he is belonging to the fourth subdivision of the astral plane and he has exhausted his entire attractions, so instantly he will be in the fifth subdivision. Accordingly, he will go to the sixth and will go to the seventh. The thing is that as long as he has not exhausted the attractions of one subplane, then the next subplanes will not be visible to him. So from the highest subdivision of this plane, it is difficult to communicate or impossible, mostly impossible for an ordinary soul to communicate with any human beings. The thing is that in the first subdivision of the astral plane, already I have told you, not only it interpenetrates earth, it stretches up to the crust of the earth. So the first subdivision of the astral plane, we can say technically maybe below earth. Mostly human beings or ordinary human beings, they go to the fourth and the fifth subdivision of the astral plane. But again, we cannot categorize it. It depends upon the mentality of the people. But when they remain up to the fourth and fifth, to some extent, there is a little bit of affinity with the earthy thirds. The entire state had been designed that, so when the man naturally dies, he naturally, according to his earthbound thirds, he lives comfortably with those planes which is near about the earth. But as he goes higher and higher in the astral subplanes, and he reaches in the sixth and seventh subplanes, there the entire matters or the systems are completely different. And from that subplane, if he wants to communicate with any persons or objects in the physical plane, it is nearly impossible on his part, unless and until he is helped by certain type of great being. So from highest subdivisions of the astral plane, we cannot maintain any contact with the physical world. A man who is absolutely pure and whose living process is very much simple, very much honest. So in the process, he can minimize the quantity of matter belonging to the lower subplanes. So when a person is leading a pure life, an honest life, not you can find as he pretends, rather actually he leads a honest life, a pure life. So by such a life, he has created such type of matters, astral matters around him, that naturally after death he finds himself, recovers himself in the higher subdivision. And when he recovers himself in a higher subdivision, no more he is attracted towards this physical world. Rather, the greater things which nature do not show us in the waking consciousness, these are now within his observations. He passes smoothly or unconsciously all the subplanes, recovers himself in the highest subplanes, and he is rewarded that from there onwards he can make a deeper inroads into the subtle states of consciousness which are there in the astral planes also. So for a thoroughly spiritual man, or a thoroughly spiritual minded person, he should not be disturbed, or he shouldn't be facing any type of difficulty while passing through the lower subdivisions, because everybody has to pass through these subdivisions. But when he passes through these subdivisions, he is completely unconscious. He never makes any type of interactions with the grosser particle of the lower subdivisions. And it is also possible for a person who have an extraordinary spiritual life, who has no such, you can find mundane things, ordinary, you can find attractions. He has to some extent evolved himself. He may not recover his consciousness in the astral plane at all. Directly he can gain his consciousness in the heaven or in the Devachanic plane also. So therefore, my intention to say that the people or the persons who are leading a spiritual life truly, or who are leading an honest life, they need not be bothered about the lower subdivisions of the astral plane. What happens to an ordinary man? So an ordinary man after death finds himself mostly by the desire elementals. And these desire elementals is practically also a, we can say it is a subtle body, the matter which he has created in his astral body during his waking life. So here we have to see one thing, that when we are living in the earth, at the same time, by our thoughts, by our inclinations, by our emotions, we are also building an astral world where after death we will go and stay. So now we all are weaving our astral, you can find, body. So naturally, an ordinary man who is full of attractions, who has not gone out of all sorts of the spell of ordinary things, for him, his astral journey, we cannot say exactly what happens, because every person's astral plane is different. Unlike our fingerprint is different, our DNA is different, every person's astral experience also different. But one thing is that as he has created a desire body, and mostly his desire bodies are made of certain type of elementals, so he is not going to face much difficulty. Also, he is not going to face many type of liberties also. The thing is that why he is not going to face much difficulty? The thing is that the ordinary man practically is not aware about the limitations which the nature has imposed it on himself. For example, when he belongs to the, when actually he stays in the fourth subplane of the astral plane, fourth subdivision of the astral plane, or the fifth subdivision of the astral plane, he is not at all aware that higher planes also do exist. Why? Because practically he finds even his afterlife, generally, ordinarily, the state of life which he is living in the waking consciousness, and after death when he is going to that particular state, he finds a little bit of affinity of his same thoughts are there. And because of that, he accepts all the limitations which nature has imposed upon him. In fact, he is not at all aware about the limitations and thinks that what he perceives is right, what he thinks also is right. So we can say a little bit here, we have an English proverb that ignorance is bliss. To some extent here it is applicable. Why? Because as the person doesn't know that after conditions, after death conditions, what are the higher things are there which he can go through, he never aspires for that also. So here we can say that look at the beauty that nature has created for us. Nature has made the after death conditions so beautiful that when we are passing through the process of evolution, generally we are not going to face much difficulty also. The life that we are living in the physical plane has its equal counterpart with the life that also we have to lead in the astral plane. But what happens to a theosophical student? I will say not only to a theosophical student, what happens to the persons who have these theosophical thoughts? What are the advantage actually for them? The advantage is that such type of persons, they accept the limitations. They know the limitations and they accept the limitations which the nature has imposed upon them. And they use their willpower. They use their, you can find thought power, mostly willpower we can say, and try to return the astral body which is not confined to any type of desire elemental. So when they try to obtain an astral body not confined to any type of desire elemental, to some extent they also succeed. It is because they use their thought and willpower. As such, they have the ability to receive vibrations from other subplanes also. And to some extent, as they are able to receive vibrations from the other subplanes, their mobility also a little bit of free. So freely, to some extent, they can enter into different subplanes, and not only they can enter into the different subplanes, they also find similar people there. So people having similar thoughts, people having similar vibrations, people having similar races also, people having similar language also, we can say lot of similarity. Where there is a lot of similarity, naturally these souls go there. And there also they make a cluster of relations. Naturally, when some type of theosophical students, they go there and they meet such type of fellow theosophical persons. So there also they got a lot of rewards by the nature, by which to some extent they can recover themselves from the lower subplanes and they can make inroads into the higher subplanes, and they also can establish a good relations, and thereby also they can minimize the hurdles of the after death conditions. So what actually happens after death? So after death, we all know that the entire life process, or we can say the different type of bodies that we have, physical body, etheric body, astral body. So after the decay or after the death of the physical body, they go for a rearrangement. And when they go for a rearrangement, at that time the rearrangement process also differs. And the rearrangement of the astral body after death to some extent is different to the having the same astral body when we have in a waking consciousness. In a waking consciousness, when we have the astral body, it also has mind principles. It also has certain type of higher principles. But in after death conditions, the astral matter settle in the astral, the mental matter settle in the mental, and there is a little bit of subdivisions. And when this happens, ordinarily when this happens, this prevents the soul just smoothly to go from one subplane to another subplane, or to go from one plane to another plane. But the theosophical students or the theosophical people, they prevent such type of rearrangement of the astral body. They don't allow the astral body just to get away from all sorts of mind principles. They prevent and try to retain the same astral body, having all the matters of the, you can find subplanes. We can say that technically, let's go forget about the planes, we can say that when we are living on the earth, an ordinary person is living on the earth, he has all the bad qualities, also he has the good qualities. And these bad and good qualities that intermingle with each other. We cannot say to an ordinary man, he's absolutely fine or he's absolutely bad. So accordingly, when he is a mixture of such type of things, we can say his astral body also to some extent like that. So when his astral body also is a mixture of some bad and good, so in a waking consciousness, he gets the liberty of dissuading the bad thoughts and entertaining the higher thoughts. But what happens after death when the astral body goes for a rearrangement? Ordinary people who do not have this type of ability to prevent the rearrangement of the astral body, they mostly fall a victim to those particular matter which they have created. And when the entire time process ends, when their attraction to a particular, you can find subplane, actually come to an end, they recover themselves in another plane. But in case of the theosophical student, they prevent this rearrangement and they retain the astral body as they had during the waking consciousness. And the astral body is like preventing some bad thoughts and replacing a good one. The desire elementals always cast fear. So what are the desire elementals? We can say the desire elementals are the particular matter which we have created. Naturally, they are all earth-bound thoughts. Instead of calling them as desire elementals, we can simply call them, they are certain type of earth-bound thought forms, which we have also created. And what is the nature of these earth-bound thought forms? We call it technically as desire elementals. What actually they do? They always cast fear. With whom they cast fear? They cast fear with that particular persons who has inherited that. And what is that fear? They cast fear that if you are going to get rid of me, then there is going to happen something happen to you. Because of this fear, ordinarily a person clings to these desire elementals and thereby delays his evolution. But a spiritually developed person or a theosophical person having theosophical thought, he remembers such type of things happens. And therefore, he is not going to, you can find, accept the fear which is actually propagated by these desire elementals. He is not going to accept that. And when he calmly refuses, these desire elementals, they simply melt away. And he is open to higher vibrations because these desire elementals, they prevent the higher vibrations. They are the, you can find particular astral matters which prevent the soul to have certain type of higher visions. But when the person's using his willpower calmly refuses their attractions, and in that particular manner, he also not going to accept, you can find, their dominations. And when they are not acceptable, they simply melt away, they simply go. And when they simply go, at that time, the persons receive higher vibrations. So what happens to the pupil when we know that the astral plane also a plane where the pupils also live? Pupils here we are saying to the particular pupils who are under masters. So for them, they have nothing to fear because they are highly spiritually minded. They have been properly trained. So pupils only can communicate properly using all their mind body in the astral plane. We know in the astral plane, the pupil use their mind body. They do not use their astral body. They use the mind body. As they use the mind body, they can freely go to all subplanes and come back from that. And when they want to be visible to a particular, you can find persons, they gather around themselves some astral veil, and through which they also become visible. And when they do not gather it, they become invisible. But astral inhabitants, mostly you can find ordinary persons, those who go to the astral plane after death, they do not have this type of power. They do not use this mind body. However, they remain in certain groups, drawn together by common beliefs, language, and sympathies. So they do not have the ability to use this mind body. What they do, they remain in affinity with, you can find those people with whom they are comfortable. So that is going to have a lot of advantage for them. Here also I should say another things, not here written. I will say this is not written, this is general belief. Very often we know that in our country, some people do say that before going to die, this is going to happen in case of the elderly persons. Before going to die, they see the departed ancestors of this particular group. And why it is so? Because gradually he is drawn to his ancestors because of his same thought vibrations, and they also come. And in a smooth manner, he lifts his body and he recovers himself in communication with the people with whom already he is well accustomed. So vast majority of the people practically do not know how to make best utilizations of their powers in the after death conditions. But the people who follow the advice of the wise, they make a lot of profit. So what the wise actually say? The wise do say that do not entertain any type of earthbound thoughts. Develop your conscience. Develop your, you can find inner faculties. And when we develop the inner faculties, that is called our willpower, or our, you can find a sense of sincerity. To some extent, our inclinations for the greater things which is within ourselves. When we do that, we get a lot of, you can find, ability to remain in a good conditions and to use also our same faculties in the astral plane. And in the astral plane, when we use these faculties, the faculties of these willpower, the faculties of this greater amount of, you can find, thought power, we can easily handle the things in the after death conditions. And we can get a lot of experience there which are not available in the earth also. So desire elementals, what actually they, how they actually prevent us in the astral plane? Desire elementals have the capacity to indulge the soul with bad karmas. And why these desire elementals? We call it desire elemental because it's our own creation. We shouldn't say that the elemental is a particular thing which actually attracted. It is not like that. The thing is that these desire elementals are our own children. So when we are sitting silently in the waking consciousness, at times we are thinking that what is wrong to make fantasy, what is wrong to think fabulously, and to what is wrong also to use my, you can find, mind power in certain type of bad things also. But we do not know what type of wrongs we are committing. Once we are going to create these desire elementals, they actually indulge us in lot of sensual gratifications. And not only that, even in the astral plane also, we can do bad karmas also, bad actions also. How? Being misguided by these desire elementals, we search to those places, those conditions, or to those, you can find, mediums with which we can satisfy our lower desires. So because of these uncontrolled, you can find, feelings, which is not within the control of the person, because he has led in the earth when he was in the physical consciousness, he led a very precarious life, very low life, and he has already created a lot of, you can find, bad feelings, the feelings which is not within his control. These uncontrolled feelings also going to follow him, and also going to put him in the severe, you can find painful conditions even after the death. Because if when he doesn't have a physical body, but he has a physical hunger, he is going to suffer. And not only is going to suffer, he search for the mediums through which he can satisfy his all sorts of sensual gratifications. But another thing also happens in the astral plane. If a particular soul departed and he has some relatives, if the relatives are constantly, you can find intensely they're unhappy, they're highly in a grief conditions, they have uncontrolled, you can find feelings towards the departed soul. These things put a lot of restrictions on the development of the soul in the astral plane when he is away from the physical body. So the uncontrolled and intense grief of the friends and relatives seriously retards the disembodied entity's journey into the subtle world. So therefore, it is rightly advised that when a person is already dead, we should pray for his after journey. We should send our positive thoughts so he can easily, you can find, sail through all these subdivisions, and all our positive thought can going to help him to move higher and higher and higher. But unfortunately, when we have the bad, you can find things, when we have the negative grief things, when you have negative, you can find all sorts of earthbound feelings about this particular person, it is going to put a lot of obstacle on his way to the heaven world. So here it comes the importance of the Shraddha ceremony. What is the importance of the Shraddha ceremony? The importance is that when we are living in the physical body, we had made a lot of habits. Food, we should get regularly food. We should get a regularly certain type of clothes. These habits spontaneously not going to end for an ordinary person even after death. So after death, he doesn't need a food, but still he has a habit, that thought he has. So in a Shraddha, when you provide him such type of things, to some extent, he remains satisfied and get rid of all sides of thoughts, earthbound thoughts. So that is going to help him. So therefore, these Shraddhas we perform, that is going to help a person's, you can find, after death condition. Similarly, also we can find in the Roman Catholic Church, they also do pray for the betterment of the soul even after death. And when they pray for the betterment of the soul after death, that is also actually helping them. So these type of things should be performed by the people in the physical plane just to help their astral relatives. If a dead wants to communicate something important, he must get a suitable medium just to get rid of his problems. At times when we die, when you go to the astral plane, because of certain type of unfortunate situation, because of an accident, or because of an unfortunate sudden disease. For example, a person suddenly dies of, you can find, heart attack in a very early age, or a person dies with a road accident, or a person have a serious things in earth, he wants to communicate to his relative regarding the will which he has done. So for these things, the persons who are in an astral plane, they face a lot of difficulty. What are the difficulty? Because they desperately try to communicate with the people in the physical world, but they do not have the way by which they can impress upon the minds of the people who are living on the physical world. Unlike today, we do not have the ability how to communicate with the people in the astral world. Same thing also, when we die and go to the astral world, also we do not have the, generally we do not have the ability. So there what happens, at times what happens, out of our intense desires, we give birth certain type of elementals. And because we want to communicate and we do not know the proper method to communicate, at times people, astral beings, do a lot of disturbances in the physical plane also. One such example is stone throwing. We know the stories of stone throwing, that how the ghosts are throwing stones. Practically no ghost is always throwing stones. That may be a black magic, but that is not going to be always. It may be feasible that the departed soul trying to communicate something, but he is unable to communicate properly. So therefore he is disturbed, and in a bizarre manner, he is trying to do that. And here you can find at times these persons are helped by certain type of astral helpers also. Leadbeater has written the book Invisible Helpers. In that book, he has given a lot of, you can find cases where these persons who want to communicate to their earth, you can find relatives, earthly relatives about some important things. They carry their message and they deliver to them also. My intention to say that if a person have any desire in after death, just to communicate to the people living in the earth, he is not going to get any type of freedom in the astral plane until and unless his job is over. So then another thing also happens. We have a term that is called said. Then what do we mean by the term said? So what is this said means? Said here represent, you can find a developed and undeveloped person's thought forms. We can say every person has a said. And astral, we can say some extent, said is an astral, you can find dead body with some gross desire astral matter. What is this? So when we live in the astral plane, even after the death, at a particular time, the astral body also comes to an end. Unlike a physical body also dies, the astral body also dies. But they do not die the way the physical body dies. So when it comes to a certain stage, at that stage, certain type of gross and certain type of desire astral matters gathered around a particular person's astral vehicle, it entangled himself with a lower passions and with lower desires. Because whenever we are saying the desires means they are lower, desire means it is lower. And when it entangled itself with the lower desires and the lower passions, then it lingers his also stay. Lingers his stay in the sense that unless and until he is not getting rid of such type of things, so he is not going to free. We call it a said. Why? Because it is not 100% away from the mind principles. So certain type of lower mind principles are already there. And before you can find fully going to an astral dead body or astral corpse, these you can find said, they try to move and they occasionally move in the astral plane also. And these sets, they resemble an individual physically. That particular individual from who is this set has been created. Not only it resembles the individual, it also possesses his memories, his idiosyncrasies, but he is not the same person, he is not the same man. We can say here a delicate thing happens. What is a delicate thing? That the astral body is going to little bit disintegrate, but 100% it has not been properly disintegrated. It has certain type of mind principles, and these mind principles consist of the lower desires, and these lower desires are not fully adjusted. They entangle the soul. So therefore mechanically the lower thoughts that we have generated, the lower vibration that we have generated, accordingly it moves also. But it also not going to disintegrate so easily. It disintegrations depends upon the intensifications or the disintegration of the desires that we have. The more intense desires we have, the greater is the stay of the states. Therefore, in case of a developed person who is not a spiritual person, I shouldn't say, but who is a developed person who has less amount of earthbound things, his said disintegrates quickly, his astral body disintegrates quickly. So here he is not going to be entangled by certain type of sets. Then another thing happens also. The sets also gradually transform itself into certain type of cells. What are the cells? cells are purely astral dead body. We can say 100% it is a astral dead body. Unlike we have a physical dead body in which the man is no more living. Similarly, also we have an astral dead body in which the man is not there, but the astral dead body is alive. Why it is alive? Because it has gathered around themselves the same grosser particles. And the same grosser particles also capable of responding to the lower vibrations, capable of responding to certain type of lower thoughts. It has certain type of lower energies. So therefore, it has its own existence. It is not going to be easily disintegrated. But the problem is that such type of cells, they also move like clouds in a sky, but they do not move freely. They move towards those vibrations which they are capable to receive. Generally, such type of cells are there in case of butcher houses, in case of liquor houses where the liquors are sold, or in case of the particular, you can find environment where a lot of sensual activity takes place. Not only they enter into some human body where they have the similarity, at times these cells also enter into certain type of animals like dogs and cats and wolves and try to satisfy themselves. And when they do that, they do a lot of evil to themselves, at the same time to the medium also. But however, we also have an etheric cell. We should understand also we have an etheric cell. So what is an etheric cell? Etheric cell in the end, unlike we also have an astral body, we also have an etheric body. So when a man dies, all of a sudden, his consciousness and his intelligence not directly goes to the astral plane. So when he dies smoothly, when his astral body is under the process of rearrangement, his etheric double also under the process of rearrangement. He goes to this etheric, you can find double. And what happens to the etheric double? The etheric double, they have a tendency to remain close to the body. As long as they have the physical body, they try to remain close to the physical body. And when they remain close to the physical body, they always move there. And when the physical body is quite intact or quite alive, they try to remain very close to it. So if you go to a graveyard or if you go to a churchyard, you can find so many etheric crops are there who remains trying desperately to remain attached to the physical body, but they cannot enter to the physical body. But the thing is that these etheric crops, though they look similar to the physical body, gradually they disintegrate slowly. So you will find in some etheric double, legs are not there, limbs are not there, little bit their heads are not there. The sight is quite, you can find unpleasant and very much terrible also. Only the persons who has a little bit of psychic vision, they can see that, but they are not the ghost. Mostly we have a lot of ghost stories in this regard, but they are not the ghost. We shouldn't say they are the etheric crops, and gradually they disintegrate. So here also we should say one thing, it is better that we should totally destroy the physical body, putting it on the fire just after the death. And when it happens, the etheric, you can find double totally disintegrates. And when the etheric double totally disintegrates, the man directly enters into the astral world. Astral world also have some dreaded creatures. We also should know little about them, because a lot of description about them should not be there. But here Leadbeater has given some type of entities who are actually very devilish and very demoniac. Astral body also is a house to some vampires. Actually, today we don't have any vampires. The vampires are the legacies of the earlier races, that is called the fourth root race. In the fifth root race, men have, you can find, already developed to a greater extent. And even if today also the fifth root race man dying, he is not 100% in a very negligible amount. In a very rarest of the rare occasion, he can meet a vampire. But vampires also are there. And we can say, who are the vampires? They are utterly degraded, brutal, selfish, highly passionate, bloody, you can find souls who have no, you can find human qualities, who cannot be called as a human being. They are unable to live in the astral world, and because of their, at times they are unable to live in the astral world. Not always, at times, because definitely they remain in the lower subplane. But because of their brutality, because of their excessive passion, because of their inhuman qualities, at times even they are unsuitable to live in the astral world. So therefore, at times they are sent to the eighth sphere. And regarding the eighth sphere, we have not so much information, but we can say that it is a sphere where terribly they go through a lot of suffering unless and until they are not getting rid of their bad qualities. But we should take precautions that we shouldn't meet these vampires. So how can a person meet these vampires? We can say that when we do certain type of black magics, when you perform certain type of, you can find rituals by which you try to communicate with those, you can find beings, and try to do certain type of things, at that time we are likely to meet the vampires even in the astral world. And when we meet them, there is no, you can find difficult to say that they do a lot of harm. However, there is a very less likelihood that we can meet them. And what these vampires actually do, we cannot say that they are 100% astral also. Vampires are not 100% also astral. We can say they are semi-materialized astral entities. We can say semi-materialized. And what is their activity? Their activity is wholesome murder. Wherever they go, they kill people. And some vampires, they are such a manner they are trained that using their semi-materialized astral body, they suck the blood of the people and they use the same blood to preserve their dead bodies. At times in the graves, when the dead bodies are opened, you can find surprisingly it has been seen that some dead bodies, they are in a very fresh condition. There is no decay. It is the role of the vampires who always supply bloods to that. However, we should not be afraid and we shouldn't discuss about them because we are not going to likely meet them, but they are also inhabitants of the astral world. Similarly, also we have another dreaded creature who live in the astral world. They are the werewolf. Werewolf also live in the astral world. And what is the werewolf? Unlike the vampires, they are highly degraded, demoniac, you can find things. And their manifestation is only limited to their physical environment. The particular area in which they were living or the area where they had the dead body, actually in those conditions they actually live. What are these werewolves? We can say that unlike the vampires, they are highly passionate and brutal things. When a particular black magician or an evil person, he invokes them, he invites them, lot of negative astral forces come and they enter into the body. At the same time also, these you can find astral entities who have been called werewolf, they also come. And because of their potency, lower potency, because of their lower vibration, they materialize themselves also as a wolf. And where they do that, they establish a reign of terror. They kill people, they kill all sorts of things. And we can say the situation is very much bloody. To some extent, we can say when in the history, if you go back to the history and if you make a search in the history, how the medieval battles were fought, how you can find fourth rootless man, he was fighting with all the brutality. At times it was the help of this werewolf also. Then we have another astral condition that is called, you can find man in the grey world. So what is the man in the grey world? What we should say man in the grey world? The term man in the grey world is that it is a term, it has been created for the people who are in a bizarre conditions after death. What is that bizarre conditions? We know that after death, even if I do not have the etheric body, all of a sudden I am not going to enter to the astral body unless and until I am not spiritually developed. So after death, even if to some extent, some days, some hours, I remain in the etheric body. When I remain in the etheric body, a mist-like body involves me, totally involves me. And when it totally involves me, I am in a condition where neither I can make any physical contact with the relatives who are in the physical world, nor I can go to the astral world where I can make any communications with the people who are in the astral world. So I neither belong to the astral world nor belong to this physical world. I remain in a dizzy conditions. I remain in a, you can find semi-unconscious conditions, which is not actually good in the particular etheric body. That is called in a gray world. However, it continues for a very small time. And there are people who can pass through this etheric double also, who can pass through this gray world also. They can recover their consciousness in the astral world also. Apart from that also, we have other inhabitants of the astral world. They are totally non-humans, and mostly they come the elementals. Lot of things have been written in this book regarding the elementals, and it is difficult to say about them in the elementals. We can simply say that Leadbeater here has used a scientific term, elemental. Practically, if I simplify that, elemental are certain type of astral matters which can be shaped into any conditions, which have a greater plasticity. We have three elemental world, and the third elemental world belong to this astral matter, belong to this astral, you can find plane. And these elementals are there with which we can create any type of forms. And the forms that we create using these elementals, they also remain there. They depend upon the particular force which has created these forms. We have different kinds of elementals are also there. For example, in the past, when the human civilizations actually in a very higher stage, where the people who are highly spiritual, they have created a lot of spiritual, highly developed elementals also in the astral plane. And these, you can find developed elementals also today are there. If a person is highly developed, such type of elementals also come to that. Similarly, also, we have already created, or still also we are creating certain type of bad elementals also, which we call as desire elementals. They also, you can find, trouble us in various ways, as also we have created. So here we have different divisions of the elementals. Some are the elementals which are spontaneously created or which are unconsciously created. They will be there in the astral plane depending the force that has generated them. Another elementals, they belong to those groups which has deliberately created. Some thought forms, he has created these elementals. Some type of black magicians are there. They also created some type of evil elementals. Similarly, also, as I have said, highly developed beings are there, also have created some good elementals. However, these elementals are going to have a greater stay. Besides that also, we have certain type of artificial elementals. They are natural byproduct of our civilizations. Because the type of thought which are generating as a whole humanity, these thoughts are not going easily away from the earth. These thoughts also had its natural counterpart in the astral world. And naturally also we have so many elementals also are there, which are also going to bear them. So these elementals, they also live in the astral, you can find, world. And as I have already said, that a lot have been written to them. I mentioned to these elementals, but I shouldn't go details to that because it creates a lot of time. After these elementals also, astral world also is populated by so many nature spirit. These nature spirit, they belong to different category. And we should know that the evolution, the entire cosmos has been designed only for the man. It has been designed for the man. It has been designed for the nature spirit. Also, it has been designed for the elementals. Also, it has been designed for the devas. So therefore, the nature spirits also live in the astral plane. These nature spirit, they belong to different category. For example, the nature spirit belonging to etheric, we call them as salamanders. The nature spirit who belong to the air, we call them as sylph. They are little bit developed. The nature spirit who is belong to earth, we call them as gnomes. Similarly, the nature spirit who belong to air, we'll call them as ignis. So we have different type of nature spirits are there. I think better also we know them. Here Leadbeater has used the term nature spirit. Also easily in our scriptures, in our traditions, we also have used a lot of, you can find nature spirits also. We call them as Jakya, Gandharva, Kinnar. They are also there. And these nature spirit, little bit they resembles also the human beings, those who live in the astral plane. But little bit they resembles. They are not totally, unlike the human, you can find body, they also have a body like that. They little bit resembles. And they belong to the different category. And they have a longer stay in the astral world comparable to the human being. Because unless and until their individualization not going to happen, nature has already developed or is developing a lot of intelligence into their mind when they are in a group conditions. Some nature spirit of the lower subdivisions, though who actually live under the earth or below earth, they have a different type of stay. And some type of nature spirit, as I have said, sylphy or sylphs are there, or highly developed, you can find spirits are there. They go to the different subplanes of the, you can find astral world. As astral world has different type of subplanes, each subplane is populated by so many type of nature spirits. Similarly, also the astral plane belong to this Deva evolution also, as I have already said. In the Deva evolution, I think here in the book Leadbeater has categorized different Devas. They call it as Rupa Devas, Arupa Devas, and Kama Devas. Mostly astral plane belong to the Kama Devas. And what these Devas do, these Devas also has a line of evolution. And some Devas, they are also highly evolved being, they are refined being, but because of their, some of their lower desires, they remain in the astral plane also. And these Devas, they are, you can find home is the astral plane. They remain there for a greater period of time, depending upon their line of evolutions. And when we talk then about these Kama Devas or the Rupa Devas or the Arupa Devas belong to the abstract level. They do not belong to the astral plane. Of course, Arupa Devas have an ability to communicate to different type of ways, but they do not belong to the astral level. Similarly, we have the Rupa Devas. And when we have the Rupa Devas, they belong to the lower, you can find mental plane. They belong to the Devachanic plane. But still also, they can communicate with the astral plane. They have the ability. And as I have said, that the Kama Devas, they remain in the higher subdivision of the astral plane. But beside that also, we have so many Devas also are there, who are not, you can find, highly evolved or highly developed. They remain in the lower subdivisions of the astral plane. Regarding the Devas, I should say that we have a lot of knowledge regarding them, because in our scripture also we worship them, also we invoke them. Here I should say that these Devas also, they do make communications with human beings, depending upon the type of thought and type of vibrations we maintain with them. Some Devas are there, they belong to the lower category, they belong to the mantra level, they can easily be chanted, they can easily be invoked, they can easily be utilized, and we can also get many things from them. But beside that, some Devas are there who are highly evolved. And when we pray them and when we invoke them, to some extent also we receive their blessings. Here also I should say that in this particular astral body book, that Leadbeater has not mentioned greater things, much things regarding these, you can find Devas. In another book, he has said that, but in this book, he has simply limited to these Rupa Devas, Kama Devas, and these Arupa Devas. we can say to some extent that all these things, all these inhabitants belong to the astral plane. So here I conclude, you can find more my talk, and if possible, we can make certain type of discussions, because I am thinking that a lot of members are there, they want to discuss it. So here I end my talk, and I invite any of you, if you want to put any questions and if you want to discuss something. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I request the members who are in the platform can share their thought, or they can ask any questions they like. Of course, it is a very interesting book. Yes, Susmaji, what is excellent. Okay, thank you, Susmaji. Very interesting book, and a lot of things has given to us by Brother C.W. Leadbeater. But one thing which I like most is that a spiritual person, most of the Theosophical Society members, they can pass the lower subdivisions of the astral plane and reach the higher level, or even to the devachanic level. That is a very interesting point. And also there are people, they can reach the spiritual plane, even they can go unconsciously because of their spiritual activities in the mundane world. And we know the story of how Yudhishthira, Nareva Gunjare Hota, for that he was just looked into the astral world or something like that. So it is a better for the spiritual person, better for the Theosophical Society members to be more on spiritual activities, so that they can pass unconsciously this lower subdivision, like subdivision 1, 2, 3, 4, I think, Brother Partha. There are 4 subdivisions.
Naturally, we do not go to the first subdivision, but okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, naturally we can cross.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone like to ask any questions? There is no question in the chat box, except Susmaji some saying gratitude to you for excellent speech. So as there is no question and nothing more to add, now I request Mitalini ji to close with closing prayer. Yeah, well.
I am very grateful to Parth Sarangi. Very clear exposition. Thank you so much, Pradip ji, for organizing such a good lecture. It's very clear. It's nothing is add.
Okay, thank
and the quotation slow जो आप बोल रहे थे कि अश्वत्थामा मरो नरो वा कुंजरो.
हाँ, नरो.
अश्वत्थामा मरो नरो या कुंजरो. So he is supposed to be very religious and a spiritual person. When his intention was wrong, so he had to face difficulty to enter in heaven. So the intention is important. Thank you so much. Very good lecture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there are many more in this book. So we'll allotted 3 lectures, our program committee. So we'll allot further 1 or 2 lecture to complete it in a not immediate Saturday, because we have already allotted 3 lectures to Brother Adi Sastri from Karnataka. So we'll think of in the July, middle of the July, or in towards the end of the July, to complete this astral plane. Okay, thank you, brother. Now I request Mithalini to close this with the closing prayer.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसु मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मां अमृतंगमय सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामया सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु न कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
Thank you, brethren, for joining Indian Section online platform. As you are aware of, tomorrow at 10:30 we have a symposium of young theosophists. It is organized by the Indian section. For the Indian section, there is a youth YIT team coordinated by Brother Shekhar Agnihotri, Barsha Patel, and Subralina Mahati. They have a team. Tomorrow we have speakers like Urvasi, Vaibhav, Suhani. 3 speakers. Moderator is Smita Pragya. Kindly join at 10:30. I will give the because Sekharji is absent, so I will be the host. Symposium is a very interesting subject. Self-development through self-sacrifice. Very, very interesting subject. So I request all the members who are here, kindly join. They have their, of course, we have the link with the, means where the Indian section is the host, but they have their separate link. So I will send it just within few minutes to each and everyone. With these words, namaste. Thank you, brother Partha. So we'll organize more program for you. At least we will see complete it in the towards the in the month of July. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.